Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me on my podcast, Swiping Over 40, Online Dating for Mature Women. So all you ladies over 40 years old that are looking for love the first time around, or maybe it's the second or third time around, join in on our podcast as I interview all different types of men from all walks of life who give advice on dating, how to navigate the internet dating process, things that men are looking for. We share stories, looking really forward to sharing all this valuable information with you and helping you find love the first, second, or even third time around. Today, I have a very interesting guest. His name is Kevin West. Now, Kevin he's an actor. He's been an actor for many years. He's also published 3 books. He's built an award-winning entertainment organization that he ran for 24 years. He has consulted more than 1,000 individuals on their career, as well as over 1,500 public speaking events over the years. Wow. Additionally, which I didn't know, he is a former stand-up comic. So maybe we'll get a little joke here or there in the interview. He's now a corporate keynote speaker, known as the communication entrepreneur. So in addition to running 4 Los Angeles marathons, that's awesome, and playing in the Men's Senior Baseball World Series, which I'm super impressed because I'm a baseball fan. Kevin grew up with just a mother and a sister, no father, no brothers. He's currently writing it's a 4th book, right? It'll be your 4th book about dating, which is so appropriate for this episode. He lives life by the 4 agreements. Love that book, by the way, and the 5th agreement. And he's willing to admit that once, it makes me sick even saying it, once he ate 67 oysters during the length of one song in a contest, and you came in second.
And I lost, yeah.
Welcome to the show, Kevin. I'm really happy that you were able to join me today in this podcast. The first thing I have to ask you before we move forward, though, did you throw up after eating 67 oysters?
No, I was in my early 20s and I was fine. But the funnier part of the story is that I didn't just lose. I ate 67. I got beat by 40. The guy who won ate 100 and change, and I was like, well, if I'd known I was going to get beaten by that much, I would have just quit.
That's crazy. Well, what a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about. So you have a book about dating coming up, as so do I. It's called Dating in a Fast Food World, The Girlfriend's Guide to Internet Dating, She Says, He Says. And so it brings up, over 45 scenarios. Each chapter is a scenario, and it has the women's opinion and then the man's opinion, which is very interesting. But you're talking about oysters. So oysters are aphrodisiacs. Am I correct?
They are indeed. They affect people differently, but they are clinically known as a common aphrodisiac, especially for men, yes.
So before we even start about dating, I'm going to ask you this question so I don't forget it. Do you take your dates to seafood restaurants and order oysters?
No. I wouldn't have done that probably ever. The better part about the contest night is I'm still pretty sure that night I went home alone, so it didn't help.
Well, thank you for sharing. I just had to add a little humor to the show. So really, the reason I started this podcast, that's focused on online dating is because there are so many people out there that are what I call your second time around. So maybe we've, been married, had families over 40, 50, 60, and we're back out, finding ourselves back out in the dating world. And dating, as we knew it in the past, is no longer. There's a book called The Rules, that used to be out for women to read. I don't know, have you heard of that book?
I have, yes.
So it's rules on how women should be or not be and act. But the way I look at it is, this is 2020, the era of online dating. Burn that book because the rules have changed. And so we're going to talk about what are the rules. What are the rules? So. What is your experience? I know we talked briefly and you said that you have. My only question was, have you ever participated in online dating?
I have, and I had not actually done that, Kathlyn, until just recently. I looked at that a number of years ago just for myself personally, and bearing in mind that while I'm an extroverted introvert, the reality is I've always had a way of meeting people, so I just the nature of me, which I think is one of the key things about dating, which would be a huge part of my book, is that to me, the rules are there are no rules. You have to look at yourself as a human being. And I was pretty sure that that matrix would not really work for me. But until my last relationship, which was quite long, quite involved, ended, I took some time away from there. But I did attempt it briefly and then stepped off and then came back to it and tried it for another 18 months. And I do not call it online dating. I call it online meeting. Oh. Because to me, you cannot date anybody until you physically meet them. And a lot of what I experienced was what I think is an extraordinarily flawed process of how both genders, and even if sexual orientation is the same, I don't care. It makes no difference to me because we're human beings. And so it's the filtering process of not even meeting that I think is the most flawed thing about online interface, is right. how we dismiss people before ever meeting them. Because, as I grew up, and I'm old enough, Kathlyn, you're old enough, I mean, you would know if you asked someone to dance, talk to them for a few seconds, we all make decisions instantly. A woman makes them in a couple of minutes. A guy might make them in a little less time. But we know whether or not we want to continue talking to someone. We already know that. And so the concept of what happens in the online interface to me is that based on profiles and pictures and maybe a couple of texts back and forth, we dismiss people, I think, because of our own childhood wiring for all the wrong reasons commonly. Not always, of course. I'm not a 100% person unless it's, math or science. But that was the biggest flaw to me in the process. And then also the requirement, which is, and I'm always very careful because I am very supportive of women, but the concept that once you went to meet, it had to be like a full-on evening, and I just simply don't agree with that. I did find a handful of people who seemed to be comfortable with the idea of like, look, let's schedule a half an hour and meet for a coffee, and if we feel like chatting longer than that, we will, and if we don't, we won't. And I think that's actually a really intelligent way to look at it, but it is not kind of the societal pattern that we have as people. Right. And so I found it was, for me, it was a great deal of waste of time and money because I knew inside of 3 or 4 minutes whether or not I wanted to ever ask this person out on an official date.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Can I ask you a favor? I think that's your phone that keeps pinging and it's really resonating through my audio. So it's making it hard. Yeah, so it's making it hard for me to follow. I'm sorry. I'm a little ADHD with that stuff. But yeah, no, and that's why they have speed dating. I don't know if you've heard of speed dating, but I think I used to laugh at it. And one time I was actually out at a local, Hollywood, kind of like a rooftop bar area, and there was a speed dating going on. And yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm gonna can't figure out why it's not muting it based on what I'm doing but I will solve it. Continue to ask the question.
Okay, so I did watch the speed dating and in person, and I kind of, for the first time when I actually watched it go down, and this was years ago, I thought, well, you know what, I can see I could see the method behind this, like you're saying. So, within the first few minutes of talking to somebody, either you have something or you don't. It's kind of hard when you're talking on the phone or you're maybe sending some pictures back and forth, you're on your best behavior and you're not really in their presence. So having that, those few minutes of contact, it's not, you don't want to be shallow and say, I'm only basing this on looks, but it's not just about looks. It's about, do I have a connection with you? People connect, their energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And their energy connects. And it's not necessarily about looks. And what I mean by that, you may pass, or I have, or a lot of us have maybe passed up someone that they've found online because maybe they didn't aesthetically look like what they were looking for. But had you met that same person in a different situation where you actually felt their energy and you were able to have a conversation with them and you could see a little bit more about them as a person, they might have looked a lot more attractive, or on the flip side, they could have looked a lot less attractive. So that, I think what I hear you saying is that meeting is basically cutting to the chase. Do we?
Yeah, chemistry is chemistry. A cathartic feeling is a cathartic feeling, and I again, part of me struggled with the concept that it almost felt commonly like a security issue. Too often to me, And again, we're not youngsters, Kathlyn. So, we're not talking about the under 30 crowd. But too often to me, it felt like that somebody thought that if they spent more time texting, that they'd get to know you better and get to the place where they felt comfortable meeting. And I'm like, I'm offering to meet you in a public venue during the day, and that makes you uncomfortable. Already for me, that was a pretty large turnoff. So it's doing again. Hey, I got a solution for this. My bad.
Okay, no worries.
Never encountered it before, but I got a solution for it.
Awesome.
I did not realize that actually quitting out of this would not solve this problem, but this will.
There you go. I heard something unclick or something.
There we go. We're good now.
Okay, awesome. But
Sorry about that, Kathlyn.
So you said you were talking about meeting. You're actually willing to say, "I'll meet you in the middle of the day."
Oh, it was actually the thing that I was going to do. Yeah, that's actually the thing that I was going to do, and it was amazing to me how often that still presented. They still wanted to text more, and I'm just not. I'm okay with texting, but I'm really not a big fan of it as a dialogue tool. And so the fact that it became a dialogue tool over actually just taking 20 or 30 minutes to have a conversation, Kathlyn, was kind of, it was disconcerting for me. That's a good word. It was disconcerting.
It's very interesting because what I'm looking at is both a man's and a woman's perspective. So from a woman's perspective, definitely I'm not into the long drawn out conversations and text messages going on. I did that, been there, done that. Like literally I had somebody that I was talking to that lived in New York, and he was online, locally on one of these popular websites. And that's the reason we connected, because he was basically in my area. He was moving here, and we talked for a couple months. We would send videos. I'm talking like of the neighborhood, video. Here's where we live. We talked, and I couldn't wait to get home from work because I had my phone date with this gentleman, right? And I'm feeling it. So he finally came out to visit, and what a nightmare! Like literally, within the first hour, within the first 30 minutes, which you would find out on this quick coffee date, so to speak, I was done. Now I've got this man in my house for a week. Didn't happen. You know what? It's like, you got to find, I'm sorry. You said you were moving here. So you said you had family. I'm going to kindly ask you to go find them and stay with them and never talk to him again. However, that being said, for myself personally, and a lot of women I've talked to, if a man says to them, "Oh, I just want to meet you for a cup of coffee," they're not down. Not meaning you have to have a long drawn out dinner. It's like, "Oh, you just want to check me out and see who I say I am." Not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that turns women off. For instance, if someone said, "I want to meet you for, a quick cup of coffee," it's not going to happen. No. You know what? Because for a couple of reasons, coffee houses are usually super busy, not all of them, but people coming in and out, they're getting their coffee, sitting down, getting coffee, sitting down. And then on top of that, the caffeine in the coffee kind of gets you a little hype. So that's
funny.
I'm already a little stressed. Now I'm like super freaking stressed because now I got people in and out and I've got some coffee in my system. So for me, no, how about we do this? How about we meet? Let's go meet in a bar. Let's go have a drink. Let's just meet at happy hour. Just have one drink. And one drink doesn't take that long. It's a little bit more. I would like more of a relaxed vibe. I'm not talking a sports bar. I'm just talking somewhere where you can hear the conversation. You can kind of feel the vibe without so much background noise. And a lot of women feel the same way. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I offered many times to have a simple drink. I'm just sharing with you that it was very common that it would turn into 2 or 3 hours plus appetizers. I could not find. Again, this is part of our societal grooming.
Mm-hmm.
That and I eventually finally got to the place where on my profile I literally wrote, "A first meet is not a first date. If you are not okay with this, swipe left." Because I just had to. I had to because not out of any form of disrespect, and it had nothing. And this is again a lot of the percentage sometimes of the opposite gender from me looks at this or views this as somehow being cheap. It's like, no, that's not what it was about. That was about it all for me. It was about the fact that we don't want to turn something into a long evening if either one of us knows that no different than the dancing. This is my joke about going bounce, go, hey, would you like to dance? You know, and you would maybe chat a little bit while you were dancing, or maybe you would chat at the bar real quick. But again, the buying someone a drink would tend to happen because you actually and literally had something in common with them.
Right.
And that's more where it became a challenge for me. And the truth of the matter is, Kathlyn, that yes, I met a couple of nice people online, but when you consider the amount of time I spent and the amount of money that it took, but more the time, my thing was much more the time and the amount you extend yourself to try and get ready. And of course, I live in Los Angeles, travel. And it became extraordinarily challenging for me to stay positive minded about doing it. And again, I'm an outward person. We've been in person before. You know me a little bit. And I'm just somebody who is, I'm always going to, I'm going to wind up meeting people. So I looked at my life because, you know, a lot of the questions you ask sometimes have to do with, you know, what is my pattern in life? And my pattern in life is I meet people. And so I just kind of thought, all right, I'm going to get off of this because it's starting to get to a place for me where it has a negative process moment to moment from just literally swiping and doing. So I just decided I'm not going to do it. And that was, again, sometimes you look at exactly 4 agreements and or look at some of the questions that you might ask. That's part of me living my best you was I have to protect myself. I have to be healthy and careful about how I love myself. And if a mechanism or a protocol or a process feels unhealthy to me, no different than if someone you're dating feels unhealthy, you got to walk. And so I just left it to the nature of the pattern of my life and how I encounter people. And I figure that's the way, because I'm currently single, the way I will eventually meet whomever that is. I hope the last person I date in my life at this age. But that's what it, but I did give it the college try. I mean, I put in 18 months. It's a long time.
That is a long time. And ladies, did you hear that? He's currently single. So you never know through the course of your life, just saying. But no, I understand because I have engaged in it, and I'm going to, I have to tell you, I don't know what you were thinking the first time that you decided to sign up for online dating. Well, I was married for many years. I was in an almost 19-year relationship with my ex.
Wow.
We were married almost 18 years, have 2 kids that are adults. So when I found myself single, it was not like, oh my gosh, I'm hurt, I got broken up with. It was a choice, that, I was, ready to, move forward in life and, vice versa. So it was okay. However, I'm, old school because, at the time I was over 40, now I'm over 50, but so way over 50. But I have met some people online. However, it was that initial step was so hard for me. So you get this. So if you did online dating for 18 months, when I finally I got talked into it, I'm a nurse, and my coworkers literally, oh yeah, Kathy, got to do it. We're all like family, right? Working in the ER, when it's quiet at night, we're looking online, like they're swiping and showing me. And okay, so I'm gonna do it. I remember that dark, lonely night in my apartment or a townhome that I was renting at the time. I was just divorced. And had moved out of the house. We got, out of our house. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, like I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go online. And I went online and I didn't post any pictures because I didn't want anyone who knew me to see me and think I was desperate. I'm like, I'm not desperate, but yeah, you are kind of desperate right now because you're going online. You meet people every day and not posting pictures, which is online dating suicide. Nobody's going to reach out to you with no pictures, right?
Yeah, correct. Because we are visual animals. I mean, males may be more so percentage-wise than women by definition of the way that we're wired and built. But to say that women aren't also visual animals is just BS. Of course you guys are. There's just a lot more latitude I found in my lifetime, and I think it's well documented that women can grow into being attracted to someone over different elements and aspects than men do. And that's, again, this is part of the challenge that I find in this entire conversation, which will be in my book a great deal, which is just because that's our nature doesn't make it wrong or doesn't make it bad. It just is. That's the way it is. I mean, going all the way back to being a kid, Kathlyn, I can recall looking, because again, I grew up with 2 women, right? Mother and a sister. Had no dudes in the house, 0. And it wasn't that my mom and my sister were into a lot of kind of like girly stuff. They weren't. My mom and my sister both were very sort of independent. They didn't read a lot of stuff, but there was a Cosmo magazine around every now and then. Well, going back 45 years or 40 years, I can still tell you, and it continues today, that one of the main survey questions women would get is, what are the most two important things to you about a man? And I can tell you right now that the two common answers that have stretched across the course of my lifetime are still the same today.
Which are?
Financial security and communication.
Okay.
And ironically, I'm the communication entrepreneur. So, and I don't blame women for that. It's just a reality. And yet, if you ask a man, what's the two most important things to you? I can guarantee you one of the two is going to be a man saying that she's physically attractive to me. So that we put physicality way up there. And women are very bothered by that, but at the same time, they expect us not to be bothered by just the fact you're curious what's in our wallet. And I don't get into which one's right or wrong, because to me, it's neither. To me, it's just it's a factor that fluctuates between individual. And it also fluctuates between where you're at in your life. That might have mattered, like you said, you're talking about online dating for people that are later in life, right? So like you said, they've been around the block, maybe once or twice, or I'm from the South, so sometimes 3 times, people where I'm from, third marriage. There may have been a time where maybe that was more important to you, but you went through dating or marrying a guy that was wealthy who treated you like crap. So maybe you get out of that, and a little bit later, you don't put as much emphasis. I think the problem that I see for the most part with humans is we don't tend to think stuff through, and we tend to want to brushstroke things away when there's a lot of minutia and a lot of subjectivity in the idea of two human beings having chemistry. And those things are all movable. So I'm not bothered by it. I just know that it exists. What bums me out is that when, one side wants everything their way and they want to dismiss what is the nature to you. So attractiveness is beauty's in the eye of the beholder. What does a lot of money mean to this person doesn't mean the same thing to the other person. And that's part of what I started out with in this today, Kathlyn, is what I saw online was I saw a lot of overt filtering before you ever met someone.
So this is what I was going to bring up, but thank you you're talking about filtering of photos. Okay. Yeah. This was one of the things I was going to bring up. So here, I'm going to tell you my opinion on it as a woman.
Go girl.
I don't filter my photos because I'm on there, when I've been on there, because I'm planning on meeting somebody quickly, like you. Like, we're on the phone right now. What are you doing? Nothing. Let's, hey, in 2 hours, it's like, meet here. There's a place, can we do it, or tomorrow? Because I don't want to waste my time. My time's precious and I'm busy. But the reason I don't filter photos, because I'm on there because I'm planning to meet you. And I'm not going to be that person, or that woman, I should say, who you're looking around to see where is she? Because she doesn't look anything like her photos. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about filtering, right?
Well, I was actually talking about filtering your opinion of someone's information.
Oh.
but both of those apply, because one is false advertising and the other is, I meant kind of like the question that you get of like, what kind of car you drive. I mean, that's what I meant by filtering. They look at people's pictures and then they look at what their profile says. And then in a few texts, they've made a judgment. Maybe that's the word I should have used instead of filter.
Okay.
They made a judgment about you before they even met you. And then, of course, what you said applies to both. And both genders are at fault for that. I mean, I literally, Kathlyn, walked up to a coffee to meet a woman in Westwood. And based on her pictures, I would have walked right by her if I wasn't sort of naturally me. Because she literally had posted pictures on her dating profile that were Brigitte Bardot. Not a joke. Because she likes Brigitte Bardot, and then she claimed to me when I was sitting there that she didn't know those pictures had shown up on her profile. Like Bardot, black and white. I thought they were artistic and cool and whatever. And, they were both blonde. She was a blonde. I thought, oh, maybe these are when she was younger. But no, there were literally pictures of Brigitte Bardot on her dating profile. I'm not kidding. And she was perfectly sweet, but it was just like, are you kidding me? So there's judgment and the pre-filter that made it hard for me as a person to want to continue with the mechanism. And that's why I call it online meeting, because Online dating is just a mechanism in a modern world from a digital technology standpoint to provide you with the opportunity to maybe discover people that you otherwise would not have encountered just in your own life. That's how I view online. And I promise you, that's literally as much credentials as I give it. Once you meet someone, I don't think dating's changed an ounce in 100 years.
Online dating, to me, I get what you're saying, I think. So it's similar to back in the day, when I was in college the first time, I would go out. It was back in the, the early 80s, and, the club scene was hot. There was always a place to go. And you sit there, and I 7 nights a week, I had a place to go. Yeah, I still had a job. I still went to college. However, I had fun. So that being said, it's like you see a woman or a man at the bar or on the dance floor, and you think, oh, he's kind of cute. Same thing with online. You see their picture, and hoping that it's them and current and not Bridget Bardot. Oh, he's he's kind of cute. She's kind of cute. So then you step into the profile. It's no different than stepping up and actually having that conversation, with that person. And again, it doesn't. We don't have there's a lot of places to go. However, I don't even think for the younger generation, the club scene is what it used to be. There was always a place to go and to meet people. And people say, oh, meet in clubs. It doesn't matter. That's where everybody went. They went dancing. They met people. It was fun. We don't really have that to that extent anymore, especially with COVID-19. So it's similar. And so this is one of what I like to get your opinion on. So obviously, when somebody's misrepresented themselves, to me, they're already, I deem you as, let me not be harsh.
No, be harsh for your audience.
Liar. Dishonest, already dishonest. And I went through that multiple times where I've met somebody. I have so many funny stories that I could, and friends' funny stories, but I'll just say one in particular. He had not, the pictures he sent, he was good looking and in shape. And this isn't the only time this happened. And we met, we met up at a mutually agreed upon place for a happy hour in LA, and I can't find him. I get there and he's here. I can't find you. Like, literally, where are you? He's I'm right here in front of you. Wow. I had no idea that was you, because your pictures had to have been about 15 years old, and you probably put on about 50 pounds. But here's the thing. This person was nice when we talked. And had he been honest, because women are, visual to a point, but not like men. Like, I don't, if you got a few extra pounds or missing a few hairs, I'm okay. You were a nice person, but now you're a liar. You've already misrepresented yourself. So I'm already done. I'll sit and I'll have a glass of wine and, have a little conversation, pay for myself and leave, no ties. But what's that misrepresentation, number one?
It's also deception. They're both, they're aligned words, but in this scenario, it feels more deceiving to me than it feels even misrepresenting.
And I'm done. I don't care who you are, what you have. And I'm not a gold digger, because I can, handle my own stuff. So I'm not out there looking for a man that, is going to, a lot of women are. Maybe that's the next thing that we're going to talk about. I actually, how many, you said you did it for 18 months. You were involved, to some degree with your online dating.
To some degree, probably 100. I'm not joking.
You gave it your all.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can, I'm not good at estimating, so if you're not, it's okay. But what percentage, if you can come up with one, do you think women were actually looking for a wallet, so to speak? I think you used that term earlier.
I would probably language it more, Kathlyn, as how much did the wallet influence how they viewed me? That would be 85% of the time. What that meant is probably different, but again, I don't take it as personally, because one of the things you said, and it's actually a common joke by some female comics about, if you don't like a gold digger, go find a woman with her own gold. Well, a lot of the women I went out with that were between the age of, let's say, 39 and 50 had married well and divorced well. They got the house that was worth $3 million and it didn't matter. They still want somebody who basically matches that in terms of their own lifestyle and their own success. And I want to be really clear. I understand that to a degree, but when it feels in the conversation that it is outweighing who you are as a person, just for me, and a lot of men don't care. This is just, I have to know my own self. Like you said, live you, love you. And no matter how much money I have, there's an element of that when it seeps out in your conversation, and or just like a man being overtly horny and being rude, right?
Mm.
That's the old joke of like having a wedding ring, suddenly you get action because you're no longer, it's not dripping off of you, that sort of feeling of being, overtly sexually horny. Well, when the financial part drips off of somebody, it's one of those things that's glaring to me anyway. It may not be to a lot of men, but I'm a Pisces. I'm very sensitive. I'm in a human awareness business. I've been in a behavior business my whole life since my first TV show was MacLeod in 1990. So I've been doing this a long time. So I'm very aware and very hypersensitive to sort of what I'm getting back in the
Right.
conversation. And so, but I mean, there's no question living in a place like LA, but people always try to say to us, at least I don't know about you, oh, it's because you live in LA. No, I've been to 23 countries and I've spoken all over this country. And I'm sharing with you that there is very little wavering in what I would say about the human condition and what you commonly encounter, regardless of the app. And maybe there's an exception of if you're in Vegas for a weekend, maybe, and that's just a maybe, and or you're glaringly out of town, like out of the country, maybe. But, and again, I don't have an issue with it. I just know that it would have been easier if I hadn't spent all that time just to encounter you. If I just met you on the street and chatted with you for minutes, I could have gone, hey, nice to meet you, and walk on. But it's a very high percentage. It's a very high percentage.
Wow. Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
One thing that we brought up, okay, now that we're talking about money and finances, I'm going to tell you, again, this is like a she says, he says. So I'm going to give you my take on it, and
Sure.
which is not that I am going to say I will.
I'm probably going to agree with you, though. I give men a hard time all the time, so you're not going to probably get an argument from me.
Okay.
I give men a very hard time.
Okay, well, this is what again, other women, I know a lot of women that don't agree with me, but this is how I feel personally. When I go into a meet, you said a meet, not a date. I consider it a meet. If we mutually agree upon a location to meet, for instance, maybe it is for a drink at a happy hour, maybe it is a cup of coffee or tea. One of those quieter, coffee shops, with lounges, they have them. So my thing is we've mutually agreed upon meeting. So I have no problem, offering, and paying, like for my coffee or my drink or whatever it is that I have, because it's not really a date. We're meeting. It's like you meet a friend and then if you say, I got mine, if they say, oh, I'll pay for it. Okay. I appreciate that. However, I know a lot of women that would rule someone out based on that, but I'm like, it's not a date. But if it was a man insisted upon a particular location, like we said, let's say I said, let's meet for a coffee. Let's just say I won't say that, but let's say I did. Let's meet at happy hour where I can get a $5 glass of wine. How's that? That's more realistic for me. And they say, no, I want to go to Ruth Chris. I love their happy hour. I want to go there. Well, let's meet there. Okay. Well, now you've made a decision of where we're going. It's no longer a mutual meet and greet. You basically made a decision. So I'm expecting you to pay. So, and but if it's a date, and I'm just talking about the first meet. So before I even go on to dates and how I feel that, well, I'll just take a step further and we'll go back to that. But I feel like if you do engage in like more, time with that person, I do like it when the man picks up the tab. However, I'm very aware of that. And I'm very aware of making sure that I make that up on the side, meaning we may go out to dinner once a week, but guess what? All the other nights we see, I've made you dinner. Yet I've done something to put effort in, to show that I care too. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on the first date and, either first meet and who pays?
Well, first of all, I'm a Southern gentleman, so I consider picking up the tab, and it was one of my problems with online dating because I do have that maxim as a man, and I was raised that way by my mother. And the only thing that I'm challenged to with that, and it would be interesting with regards to someone like you, is that I would never tell a woman where she needs to go to meet me for the first time. My standard conversation, Kathlyn, was always, please let's pick some place that is near you, that doesn't cause you to have to drive across town. I will travel to you, and you pick some place nearby that you are comfortable with, because I am a huge person on your physical neighborhood comfort when meeting a stranger. So I would never have been the man who tried to change what you wanted to do. So unfortunately for me, the scenario you just described, I would never have done, ever. And therefore, and yet, so women would pick Ruth Chris. Ruth Chris is just a sample, but I had a handful. Don't misunderstand me. I had a handful of women who were totally fine with a coffee, and a handful of women that were totally with, hey, listen. They said basically what you said, which I love, which is, hey, this is a first meet. Happy hours here. I like this place. It's inexpensive. We're going to go there. Cool. But I would still always defer to, where do you want to meet? Because I respectfully understand the dynamic, male to female and strangers. And that's what you are until you meet. And so I would never have done that as a first meet, to go, nah, not that place. I like blah, so we're going to go here. First of all, I agree with you. If someone does that, yeah, he's buying, period, end of conversation. But I simply would never have done that. That's just that's not in my belief system in terms of the construct of meeting someone based on an online app. It's just not how I flow. I wouldn't do it.
Well, ladies, pay attention because there are true gentlemen out there, whether it's Southern or not. Maybe that plays a bit of a factor, but there are plenty of gentlemen out there who are recognizing that you are meeting a stranger, and they realize that you don't have that comfort level with them yet. And I would say one thing that I do talk about in my book, and I'm just going to touch on it super quick and then go back. But, I was a former Los Angeles police officer for 10 years, prior to becoming a nurse. And my book is, a big portion of it is meant to keep women safe during the dating process. So always go to a place that you're comfortable, something, a place that's well lit, a place where, that's not, when I say comfortable and well lit, it doesn't necessarily have to be daytime, people at work and what have you, but a place that where there are other people around in the event this person isn't who they say they are. And I actually have the percentages. I can't remember off the top of my head. Surprise, surprise. But there are a lot of predators online. When I'm talking predators, I'm talking, there are serial killers, there are narcissists, you name it. And in my book, I talk about how to keep yourself safe and how to recognize those people. Oh, and I have a story. I'm just going to throw it in here really quick. Well, it's one of many stories, but I know when I first started online dating, I had met somebody at PF Chang's. We were, going to meet and have a glass of wine or what have you. And we had a phone conversation. He knew that my wine of choice was Chardonnay, oaky buttery. And I got to the location, and he had a glass of Chardonnay waiting for me. And I really wanted it because I had just gotten off work. However, keep myself safe. I don't know what he's put in there. So I politely said to the waitress, I said, thank you so much for getting the Chardonnay. I really want a cab, and I got a cab. And I can tell you other experiences where I have no idea if somebody slipped something in that wine. But anyway, going back to the public place and being comfortable and the paying, not paying, I think that's a big issue. I think there's a lot of women out there, and I don't bash women at all, but I have friends, and I've interviewed hundreds of people, and for this book, and they expect a man to pay to take them somewhere nice, take me to a dinner, take me out. As a man, I would say, I think you've kind of already said it, it's a meet, it's not, and you're a Southern gentleman, and you would let them pick the place.
To me, it's not a date. It's not a date. When we've never met, this is not a date. It's the same thing as meeting somebody in passing on the street, same as meeting somebody in the library, same as meeting somebody that you were out dancing with. You then eventually reach the point where you ask somebody, I would like to call you and ask you out. May I have your number? That becomes a date. That's step 2. And all the online app does is make us know of each other's presence on the planet. That's not a date. And so once you sit with somebody, that is your first in-person conversation with them.
I love it.
Yes. Can Zoom help? I mean, if we were doing this, for example, as a preface to online match, Bumble, whee, ding, and we had a Zoom, and then you decided I would actually, if we spent this kind of time talking, Kathlyn, I would actually feel more comfortable if I was then interested in actually asking you out. That would feel more like a date because I've had a chance to hear your voice, see your eyes, watch you react to what I say, get a sense of the chemistry of us having a chat back and forth. That's a really nice midway point to what I call, or what everybody else calls, online dating, which I just call online meeting. So to go from an app and texting to standing before one another, that's why I call it a meet, not a date.
Yeah, I like that. I've actually never heard that concept, but I actually really like it because it takes a lot of the pressure off. And I think that a lot of women, and even, I wouldn't say so much men, but what do you think about this? Like, do you feel when you've gone on a date with a woman, or a meet with a woman, do you feel, have you ever had a situation come up where you feel like they're already trying to decide if you're the one? And maybe you are also on the first meet.
Oh no, I'm not built that way. And yes, but that would be my whole life. That wouldn't be the online dating era. That would just be my whole life.
You're always wondering if it's the one, or people are always thinking.
No, that's how. Yeah, I mean, I got so many stories that they're all going to be in my book. But one of my favorites was when a girl said to me, I had asked her why she had moved down to L.A. Instead of where she lived, which was not that far away, but a different county. And she said, "Oh, the husband shopping here is better." Now, that's fine. That may be, again, something that I can naturally presume. If you're a certain age, I can presume that in my own mind.
Right.
And somebody might look at that as being honest or being straightforward. And it's, with all due respect, no, it's not really what you want to hear the first time you sit with somebody per se. It just isn't. And so, again, I think you have to allow chemistry to draw yourselves together. Regardless of physicality and intimacy, it becomes a separate conversation. But I have a bunch of those things that have been very and men do the same thing. Men do the same thing. All the men expect that if they bought dinner, you have to go home with them. I mean, there's all sorts of that stuff on the same side of the conversation. And I have no patience for either gender and their BS in either direction, because to me, this is chemistry. This is a lot of subjectivity, a lot of minutia, and you just have to get a sense from someone. Because I have a real simple line about dating. If I sit and chat with you and there isn't a part of me that naturally wants to kiss you, I'm not asking you out. It's that simple.
Okay.
I don't have to kiss you now, but if I don't want to, we got nowhere to go. For me.
Well, and I talk to men, and it seems to be the unanimous decision. You know, if you're sizing up your prey, so to speak. I don't want to call women prey, because we're much more than prey, but we're only a step out of the cave, and and have a lot of animalistic characteristics. I will say that. And so men, like you said, they're very they're very visual, and so you're looking at somebody. Maybe you're thinking, do I want to kiss this woman? Do I feel attraction towards this woman? And to me, that's kind of sizing up the potential. I guess that's a better way to put it. And a woman is thinking, will this man provide security? Correct. Will this man provide safety? Sure. Does this man have his shit together? Where he can take care of me? Because women are on the opposite.
Absolutely.
A lot. I mean, I'm generally speaking, because I know everybody's different, and I don't like to stereotype or clump people into a certain category. However, I did a lot of research, and this is what I found pretty much across the board with women. So I would like, before we go, I would like to know, okay.
Okay, Kathlyn, real fast. I have a problem. I have a problem for you. I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'm gonna pause for 1 second. Okay.
Well, I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, I'm just pausing. Yeah. So what I have seen is that how men size women up for what they're looking for, based on their natural instincts, and women do the same to men. Again, they're looking for. I think a lot of the time it is financial, but I think it's more than financial. I think it's bigger than that. They're looking for a protector.
Oh, it's absolutely more than that. It's societal association. It's what's my mom going to think about this person. I can go down an entire list of things. And by the way, men also, depending on their age and their scenario, men also do the same thing that has nothing to do with physicality or intimacy. Men also go, will she make a good mom? I mean, men do the same. Men do the same exact thing in lots of ways. And my thing just about wanting to kiss you, that's not being an ogre. That's just a baseline form of, do I initially feel, am I drawn towards this person in here? That does not mean that shuts down my brain assessing the other elements of her. Now, again, I'm not necessarily like a lot of men, because they are pretty much driven, as we know, for the most part, below the belt. But there are absolutely men who unequivocally have done the same exact thing. She's safe. She's simple. She won't this. She won't that. She'll make a good mom. there's men who do that stuff in the first 15 minutes. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And again, I agree with that. And we're talking about like past those stages, a little bit older. And I wonder what advice you have for women, because we think we know. Well, let me just tell you what I think. And then you can tell me, I'm just going to talk about what pictures to put up. My thing is, I'm going to put up pictures that depict me. Like what I'm wearing, you're going to see me, if you meet me on the street, I'm going to be wearing something similar, because I don't want to put on like the super high heels and, the super sexy dress in a picture. If, in life, like unless there's maybe an event or something, you're probably not going to catch me in that, because I really want, and I've learned this through time. I think it's important, if you're truly looking to find love, if you're truly looking to find a mate, not just to hook up a mate, you really have to be aware of who you are and make sure that everything you put on your profile, your pictures that you post, the words that you post, that they depict who you are. Because, I know one of them is they give options at a lot of sites. What are you looking for? Are you looking for casual, friendship, relationship, marriage, long-term, there's all these options. So my thing is, I would have friends that would put on, they wanted to get married or they wanted a long-term relationship. However, they'd put casual friend. Why would you put that on there? Because, the guys, they'll see that and it'll scare them away. My thing is, there are so many people online. There are hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people online. So I would rather be honest and say, if I want to be married, that's what I wanted, I want a long-term relationship or marriage. I would put that on there. Right. And does that happen the first time you meet? Absolutely not. It takes a long time to get to know someone, but know my intentions. And if 1,000 people pass me by because they want to hook up, bye, Felicia. You go on because
Bye, Felicia. There we go.
Because I'd rather have one or two people that respond that have the same intention. Not that it'll be the one. We've never even met. You have to. It doesn't mean I'm ready to rush in. It means I want to take time. But I'm not talking about me in particular, but friends. Like, say, mean what you say and say what you mean. And I think it's very true, unless you're just looking to have fun. So. And the same thing with the pictures, like we talked about the Photoshop pictures and pictures of Bridget Bardot versus herself. So what, as a man, when you're looking at those profiles, and I want to know if you agree with me or disagree, and also when you're looking at those profiles online, what are you looking for? Are you reading profiles? Are you just looking at images? Do you look at images, and if you like them, look at profiles? Like what are you looking for? Are you looking for any red flags when you're first scanning?
Well, I don't have to look for red flags, because those pop out of me kind of like breathing. So I don't have to look for them. Also, I personally think that they should to me, and this is just a Kevin thing, I think they should get rid of all of those questions that relates to what are you looking for? Because I can tell you right now that you could have asked me that question in the last 5 years and I would have told you not looking to date at all. And I could meet somebody tomorrow on the street and they would change my mind by who they are. I could also tell you that you're the biggest challenge, and this is going to be in my book, because my book's only about dating. My book has nothing to do with going monogamous in a relationship. My book, it starts at stranger and ends at monogamy. That's where my book starts and ends, because you already built the foundation to your house in that period of time. And I have seen women who are very strongly wanting to be married. And what they do in that process is they get all of the red flags from the guy, but there's just a couple of them that actually meet their checkbox, and they ignore all of the ones because the guy's willing to get married, and that's why they're divorced 3 years later. So wow. I'm not a person who likes to look at the finish line when it comes to something as subjective and chemistry oriented as dating, connection, togetherness. What I look for, of course, I'm going to look at someone's pictures. And so something that's not that is false advertising. Again, I encountered a lot of, now I happen to be of a certain age. I don't happen to look it. I can't do a lot about that. And that's not even a vanity thing. I just don't look my age. I still have my hair. It's not gray. And there are plenty of people at 45 who have no hair or completely silver hair. And I'm not 45. So, but the visual part of it is false advertising, but I absolutely read profiles. What I look for is, does somebody even write with a sense of humor? Does somebody even have a little cuteness in the way that they put text together? That I'm going to look for how they language things, what words they choose to use. And I'm also going to look at somebody's lifestyle. I'm going to look at the things that they like to do. It doesn't mean that opposite can't attract. I do believe they can. I don't know if complete opposites, if one person is a complete introvert and someone's a complete extrovert, I don't know if that works long-term. If someone's a complete indoor person and a complete outdoor person, I don't know if that works. But I would always naturally look for sort of what I thought I would get from someone's energy based on the things they said in the profile they like to do. And within that, as we would say as guys, the game within the game is I would look at the text within the text to see if I could get a sense of their personality, which is not character, two different things, something I talk about as a corporate speaker. And by the way, one of the other things I talk about is don't just say what you mean what you say. So I'm with you on that. So I would be relatively quickly, and I could do it in a blink of an eye, analytical about those two things. So, and I just, part of it's being an actor and part of it's being an athlete, and concern yourself with the effort and the result will take care of itself. It doesn't mean that you can't have an aspiration to be married and have kids, or aspiration to be on your third marriage or your second. I think that 98.9% of women are always looking for a relationship. So to me, the question to women being put on a site is absurd. I mean, yes, I've met a handful of women in my life that either because of the moment in time that I was meeting them or the mood they were in, that they were cool with just being casual for that moment. But that is extraordinarily rare. It happens. We know it. You have girlfriends. We know that happens. Mm-hmm. But what I saw more happen in my life and what more happened with me, Kathlyn, was that somebody went out someplace and they did not go out as a female, but you guys control half the money and all the sex in the world. So you have complete power over this. Anything outside of that is a crime. They didn't go out planning on, having a one-night stand or hooking up with somebody. It just happened. So those things to me are just part of what happens in life. That's just the dance of life. But I think that most men are constantly, by the way we're built, looking for something casual. And if it turns in they really like the girl, they're cool with it. And I think most women, to a very high percentage, are always looking to meet somebody that's quote unquote going to be a special person in their life. And I think that that is just a more simple, generic platform from which to work. And once you meet somebody, you see how it starts to fall from there. Because I just don't believe that trying to shove a square into a circle, trying to make something fit, I think that's the reason why we have nearly a 60% divorce rate.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, and I would believe it. I have a lot. There's a lot of value also to what you're saying. And having been married and having been single, I've seen all sides of everything and really changed, who I am and how I approach dating. You know what? Can we have fun today? Can we get along? Can we talk? Are they interested in me? Am I interested in them? What can I learn about myself? What can I learn about them? It's become far more of an exchange of energy and information than it is like trying to find the one. You brought up
it's got to be a light dance. It's got to be a light dance, man. It's got to be a light dance. If it's not a light dance, what are we doing?
Absolutely. However, this is something that I learned through time, and I talk about, with my friends in my book. And I would say a lot of my friends or I wouldn't say a lot, but a lot of people I've talked to, they haven't changed that. It's not working, to try to pin everybody as the one. Men inherently, they feel that. They feel when a woman's them as the one. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah. It's like dogs and bees can smell fear. Let women have a natural radar for something, and men do as well. Even ogre, idiotic men that I know, they still can get that glaring thing of like, do I know you? It's like, we just met, man. So I do think that a lot of times there's a lot of pushing and rushing. I used to, this is one of the phrases that you will literally see in my book, is that men push women too quickly physically and women push men too quickly emotionally.
100%. I love that. So
I know you're gonna be stealing it. I know.
But no, I'm not going to steal it. But it's. I mean, I'm.
And do you know why that exists? That exists because of the Madonna whore syndrome. That exists because men have a double standard. It exists because society judges women unfairly for what they do physically, because you guys do control sex. And having grown up with two women, I have a real problem with it. I'm not an advocate for people being promiscuous, but I have a real problem. I'm an idealist. I have a real problem with any form of imbalance. You get to go be and sow your oats and a woman doesn't, screw you. I mean, I think that's so freaking wrong, man. I can't see straight. So I have a real problem with it. So I have a problem. And by the way, that's how most people get together. One pushes the other one too fast and too soon in one way or the other. So when you make that and that becomes a dating premise, and that was the foundation of how you guys met, at some point that's very likely, because life is tough. You have hard moments in life like COVID or like Black Lives Matter or anything else, or job loss, or we have to move, or my parents are sick, or pick something, or you're pregnant and our child has an illness. I mean, just pick anything. Life is tough. So when someone got pushed too fast physically, or someone got pushed too fast emotionally, and you don't solve that long before someone says I do, or you're screw glued and tattooed as far as I'm concerned. There's an inevitable end to that, for sure.
I love that. And actually you picked up on my next question I was going to ask you, but now you made me think of something else that I'm going to.
I'm weird that way.
We're coming to the end of our hour. However, I'm going to go back to what I was going to ask you that you somewhat touched on without me asking you. But the other thing is, what I love what you said, because there's so much truth to that. So you talked about how the man pushing too much physically and the woman emotionally. I agree. And how, I've seen men interpret that push emotional is the pull, and how I see women, I may want to be with you, like, no tomorrow, like, let's go get the hotel room and let's just, let's spend like a week. However, when you pushed me, I'm not interested, because it's not flowing naturally. And is that what you say, how it is with, you may be really into it, a woman, and then because you feel such push, towards the emotional and desperation, does that make you pull the other way? Like, I was into you, but now I'm kind of like,
Are you asking me personally?
Yeah, I'm asking you personally.
Yes. If I'm sitting across from somebody for whatever number of dates or whatever number of whatever, and I get the sense that you are literally blinded by the construct as opposed to paying attention to what you're getting from me, yeah, I walk on that.
It's an agenda.
It doesn't matter, and it doesn't even. Well, also, yes, I still think that we all have natural agendas, but I have a much bigger problem with you either choosing to be deaf or blind in my presence than I even do with the subconscious or very cognitive agenda. I have a much bigger problem with the fact that you don't seem to be paying attention to who I am and or how I feel or what I'm expressing. And I'm not talking about the dude who's just trying to have, a casual sex affair on and on and on and on. I'm talking about the process of getting to know somebody. I mean, I have been with 3 people for a total of 18 years of my life. It's not like I haven't committed my entire soul and heart to being with someone. I've done it, and I've done the other. So if I feel like you're simply ignoring my existence and you wind up, maybe you like me, and therefore then your agenda even kicks into a higher gear, and it causes you to basically have, at given moments, like every moment we're together, that you're just basically not even seeing or hearing me, then I already know 5 years down the road, you're also going to ignore me then. And that's the biggest challenge that I have in my book, honestly, Kathlyn. That's the predication of my entire dating book, and why for 20 some years I've wanted to write it. I just now finally have the time to do such, is that we ignore the signs that we're giving, and we then wonder why they go wrong later on. And you shouldn't have ignored them to begin with.
Gosh, I could talk to you probably. Maybe we need to have like a follow-up episode.
Oh, it's like a 5-part series we're doing, girlfriend. Here we go.
5-part, which is, yeah, no, for sure. Because I have so many questions for you, and I had so many things I wanted to ask, and I'm kind of skipping over them based on the flow of the conversation. But what I hear you saying, if correct me if I'm wrong, is that you want someone to get to know you. You want them to, when you say they're just kind of skipping over and not looking at me, they're not asking you questions. They don't know, where your heart is, where your soul is. What's your favorite food? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? What excites you? Are you talking about conversations where they're really getting to know you because they've already made up their mind? Oh, he's the one I want because he checks whatever 2 boxes out of 20.
Or the first 3 out of 4. I mean, whatever it may be.
Well, yeah, but so as a man, because this is how women feel a lot of the time, like you've decided you want to sleep with me. I can feel it. You already know, like, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying a man, like, I'm wondering if it's the same. So I know when a man's decided they want to sleep with me, they want to take
that happens in the first 45 seconds. Typically.
Right. So once they've decided that, more often than not, that's the pursuit, you know,
Right.
and but the pursuit, well, I can only speak for myself, you know, my attraction comes through the mind and the soul connection. So if you're not connecting to me, it's not going to happen ever. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're famous. I don't care if you're beautiful. I don't care if you have, you know, you're a trillionaire. It's irrelevant. It's not going to happen. So I'm wondering if that's the way I feel. I take it to the extreme. I get it. So, but that's me, and I'm okay with that. If someone's not interested in me, then I don't like that I don't like that feeling. Like, you're not interested in me for me because I have a lot to offer. You know, and a lot of women feel like that. And I think what I hear you saying is that men, or you personally, kind of feel that way too. You're just glancing.
Yeah, it depends, but I really, one of the biggest things that I would encourage women, and actually one of my desires, Kathlyn, quite frankly, is to spend a lot of time with the rest of my life on the planet actually trying to speak to women's groups about men. Because one of the things that I would tell women that unfortunately I think they spend too much time on and put too much weight on is the fact that a man physically wants to have sex. Yeah, since you were 15.
Right.
So as we would say in geometry, it's a given. Set it aside. That doesn't mean you succumb to it. It doesn't mean that you agree with it. It's just set it aside, because it's not going to serve you at all to be pissed off or irritated that a guy is a physical person. Then if you would just set it aside, or your offense to it, or your annoyance with it, and ask questions and pay attention to what else he says and does, because actions have to match the words, skip the sex part. And by the way, I'm actually one of those people who, if you are attracted, get sex out of the way, because then you'll find out what a guy is really about. Now, that does not mean that's, again, I'm not promoting promiscuity. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that physical intimacy has hung more people, metaphorically, in the concept of a relationship and actual real intimacy, which to me isn't sex. Sex is easy. That's just physical. Real intimacy is what men don't want to have to do. And that's break down being vulnerable. And intimacy is what women have been doing since they were 10 years old. This is part of the problem. Women are much more designed and built with emotions. That's why they have a much more emotional maturity by the time they're 21, and men don't. We also are never given any societal priority for actually becoming aware of who we are, or actually finding out how we're made up versus just what we feel. And we have no factors in life. As long as you make money and you're successful, you don't ever have to evolve. That's why I know so many 65-year-olds in LA who are basically still 16. So this is part of the problem of, it's a big thing, is emotional maturity. It doesn't have anything to do with your physicality. But this is a real problem. So to me, I don't even want to have the sex conversation, because it's a given from men. So set it aside. Ask him questions. Pay attention to what he does. And don't just do it on the first time. And even after the first date, even if you do hook up, all these things don't necessarily mean, listen, the first long-term adult relationship Kathlyn I had, shocker, is a woman that I met at a party, and 5.5 hours later, we were naked. The belief that means that a man can't take someone seriously is BS. I dated her off. We had 2 short breakups, so I dated her for 5.5 years. So the concept that just because we had sex quickly meant that I couldn't see the value and how much I was attracted to her is horse manure. Is it going to happen every time? No. But to say that it never happens is just flat out wrong.
So that was going to be my question. And I'm like looking at the time, and we're a little over an hour, but I would like to have this parting question.
Sure, fire away. I'm happy to come back if you'd like. It's no problem.
Actually, yes. I want to do a 5-part series with you, actually. So I just decided.
You're going to have to ghostwrite my book for me at that point.
There you go. But yeah, no problem. I love to write. So that's what I was going to ask you about, the double standard, which I don't want to agree or buy into the double standard. You know, again,
I hope you don't.
I don't. However, statistically speaking, that is a reality, you know, and it's not fair. It's and you talked about the Madonna syndrome. You know what? This is something. How about this? We'll save this for the next conversation, because we're going to talk on the next call, if you're willing. Is we're going to talk about, well, I guess like I don't want to say hooking up, but having a sexual encounter, you know, on the first date, with somebody, or when you first meet somebody?
First encounter, yeah.
Yeah, first encounter. I guess that's a good way to put it. So on the next episode, let's talk about that. I want to hear not just from your perspective, but men that you know, women that you know, and I'm going to share mine as well as my friends, and how and why women maybe, even if they feel that that's what they want to do, the reluctancy that comes based on experiences. We'll talk about that next time. I'm all about like this. Okay. Embrace the journey. 9 years ago when I got divorced, I had a bracelet and it said, embrace the journey. And I promised myself every day that I was embracing the journey going forward, that it was, it's not about a race to the finish line. Like you said, not when, is this going to be the man I'm going to be with? Is this going to be the job, the final endpoint? Because it's never ending, because life flows continuously. So I'm going to embrace the journey every day till the very bitter end. And there's no finish line until there is. And I don't know when that is. So anyway, I could talk forever. So Kevin, can you promise our listeners that you will come back for part 2, where we can bring up that the double standard, potential double standard of the sex on the first
of society and family. It's
okay.
The double standard of society and family. Yes.
Well, I thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'm so excited to talk to you. And I'm really excited about your book, and we're on the same genre, yet we got a little bit of differences, which I love. And so thank you for coming on. I would love you to share with the viewers how they can get a hold of you, or reach out to you.
I'm easy to find because of my history. I'm easy to find. My Twitter and Instagram or TikTok is, but I haven't really even done TikTok yet. But I've got a thought about TikTok that I haven't actually fleshed out. But it's at the Kevin E. My name is Kevin E. West with the middle initial, and so my easy way to find me is the Kevin E. I also have a fan page on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn, so I'm pretty easy to find. Kevin E. West. You put it in Google, and a bunch of stuff will pop up, inclusive of being the author of these 2 gift books, Life in a Word and Politics.
Oh, okay. So which ones are those? Kevin's
It's called Kevin's Dictionary. It's Life in a Word and Politics in a Word. They're cute little gift books that are a play on words in terms of definition of words and stories from life. But they're both available on TitletownPublishing.com or Amazon. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to, because my dating book is probably not going to be done until the end of the year. Based on the way COVID and what happened, it altered some of what's gone on for me for the last 90 days. And so I probably won't be finished until the end of the year. But again, the thing about my book is it's just about the dating phase. That is all my book is about, because I think that's where all the mistakes are made.
I love it. And each episode, we're going to talk more about your book. I love that you're including some of the, the excerpts, philosophy, thought behind your book, just like I am with mine. I love what you're talking about from start to finish. And here I am, talking about how to navigate through online dating for those that are 40, 50, and even 60s and over. And also the woman's perspective and a man's perspective, which is super enlightening. And I'm looking forward to delving into this quite a bit more with you, Kevin. So thank you so much. And
sure, my pleasure, Kathlyn. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Total pleasure.
Hmm?
Total pleasure. Yeah. And as I say all the time, I'm a gentleman, but I am a man. And that's one of the reasons why I think I have the perspective I have, because I am a gentleman. I never had to worry about anything when Me Too cropped up, but I'm still a man. And so it gives me a perspective, I think, between the part that makes me the animalistic guy and the part that is a raised gentleman.
Hello, everybody. And thank you again for tuning in to today's podcast, Swiping Over 40. If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe to my podcast channel. And ladies, I'm super excited because I do have a book coming out shortly, and it's titled Dating in a Fast Food World, The Girlfriend's Guide to Internet Dating, She Says, He Says. You're going to love it. It takes into account anything you can imagine that you might encounter while navigating through the online dating process. But not only does it have the input from a woman, it has the input from a man as well. So you'll get the inside scoop. You can also subscribe to my newsletter by going to Kathlyn.com. I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you, and may you all find love.